You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a new week here in the beautiful month of May, Seattle hockey fans, and I appreciate you joining us on the Locked On Kraken show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Erica L. Ayala here, your host of Locked On Kraken. Been with you since the very beginning, and I can also be found these days talking on CBS Sports about women's basketball, sometimes a little ice hockey. I've got another special assignment coming up for CBS later in the month, but always a joy to be here. Hop on the microphone. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, that first segment was a little long in the tooth. And, I think it's a worthy conversation. But I want to talk about a player that potentially Jessica Campbell, whether directly or indirectly through her work with Matty Beniers, I think has impacted. When I talked to John Chick, he's our host of Locked On New York Rangers, from everything that John was saying, I said early on, I hope we see Kakko link up with Matty Beniers. And that's exactly what we saw. The ice time of the Schwarz-Beniers-Kakko line, highest in the regular season for the Seattle Kraken. This is a la moneypuck.com. For those watching on YouTube, I'm going to share the screen here for you. So you can see Schwarz-Beniers-Kakko when I toggle for most minutes, by far, I mean, not even close. They had 459 minutes, so nearly 460, right? I just like round numbers. Odd numbers, or excuse me, even numbers. I like even numbers, round numbers. 460, let's just say. The next highest line, which I told you is one of my favorite lines of this past season, Bjorkstrand, Wright, and Tolvanen come in at 189.9. Nearly 460 minutes for Schwarz-Beniers-Kakko. 189.9 for the second highest line. Now, I would argue that some of that is because of injury and the line swapping and things of that nature. But I was okay with this line getting a lot of the juice, so to speak. And you will see that they had 38 games together, so also the most among all of the combinations. You can take a look right here. The next was Bjorkstrand, Wright, and Tolvanen with 36 games together. Etc. What we also see here are the goals for percentage and the goals for in a raw number. So if you look at where that Schwarz-Beniers-Kakko, they're lower, as you can see, with the percentage of goals for the Seattle Kraken. At 48.8%. I'm okay with that for now. I'd like to see it get higher. I think there are a few different factors here. This Beniers-Kakko line, or Beniers-Kakko line, only 8 games together, but something to keep an eye on. Something to keep an eye on for sure. If we do the same here, X goals for Schwarz-Beniers-Kakko right up there. So total percentage versus, what they're able to do. Now, here's what we got to take a look at. Goals against, 20.7. Do I understand that? Absolutely. Because we would hear from Dan Bylsma, from Matty Beniers, they're getting top line. They're playing defense against other top lines. So I'm not surprised there. Of course, that's a number that you want to see shored up, and it's not really that surprising. So, goals for per 60. Top is, I think this is awesome. Cartier, Hayden, and Isimon. Schwartz, Wright, Bjorkstrand, Cartier, Wright, Isimon. So, these are those scrappers that can get things going for you, and you love to see it. Schwarz-Beniers-Kakko, still in the mix there. Want to see that maybe go up as well. So I think overall, a super strong line for us, and they can make improvements. I wanted to give you that data before we hear from Kaapo Kakko himself. So let's take you over to a few things that he had to say in his exit interview about his first season, although it was not a complete season, but his first ride, if you will, with the Seattle Kraken.
I felt good. Like, I was happy to come here. Kind of new chance, fresh start for me, and like that was the mindset coming here, and felt pretty good this whole time.
How important is it for a hockey player to feel like he has the coaches and the front office's trust, and how much does it hurt if you feel you don't have that?
I really feel like I got a chance here, and like I said, like more ice time and all those things. Confidence is a pretty big thing, and I feel like there was some games like earlier this season, like over there, and even seasons before, like I kind of didn't feel that good. But over here, like I think every game we got a good chance and get a lot of ice time, so felt pretty good. Yeah, that was something also they told me, like it's gonna happen at some point, but you still gotta try to make plays, and I felt like that's something I didn't do too much before I got here. Like I was kind of, I don't know, scared, but I just didn't try to make plays, and that's maybe something like I didn't have that many points or goals, like before. So I feel like that's what our line tried to make all the time, like every game. And I mean, there was some games like didn't go well, but I think overall like was a good thing. We tried to make those, and I think we got a couple goals because of that.
So that was Kaapo Kakko. There's so much that I liked there. He likes playing with Beniers. He thinks that Yanni Newman, is going to be someone who can come to the NHL in time. I agree. I don't think it will be a lot of time. Overwhelmingly, what you likely got, if you were hearing what I heard, is that this step for Kaapo Kakko was about building his confidence. He said that he was told, sometimes you have to just make plays, find ways to make plays if you're not scoring, if you're not contributing in the ways that you feel that you should. And he had said that he had been told that, but it was when, obviously I'm paraphrasing here, when he got to Seattle that he felt that he could do that. For me, what I'm hearing is a guy in his head at times, lacking confidence. He said he gained confidence, not wanting to make a mistake, but he was freed from that fear of making a mistake because he was told it takes time. It takes time. The only way sometimes that you get better at something is by leaning into that you're terrible at it at first. Maybe not terrible, but you're not great. They say success. So I think that goes back to Dan Bylsma. It's the philosophy that Jessica Campbell carries. And the last question, I think it was the last question, if not one of the last questions that he was asked is, do you agree with Chandler Stevenson about Bylsma and the importance of, being a person first perspective? He also talked, about it makes a huge difference when you have the confidence of your coaching staff. He talked about how he had lots of conversations with Dan Bylsma. There was a King 5 segment that I believe that we played on the show, or I at least referenced it, where Dan Bylsma was talking about, I think he was talking about Yanni Newman, but he's talking about how when he does that work with a player, and maybe there's a little bit of a language barrier, someone not as comfortable and confident speaking English as they are in another language, he breaks that down, tries to figure out what's the base level of understanding, and then works directly with that player. It sounds like he was able to do that for Kaapo Kakko as well, because that's what Dan Bylsma does. That's his style. And by proxy, I would only imagine that's the style that Jessica Campbell would have as well. So go back to segment number 1 if you want to hear me talk about why it's not quite time for Jessica Campbell to be a head coach. But if she brings that along with her, continues to learn the game, takes that next level of learning how to manage the game. That is a skill. Not everyone who's a great player is a great manager. Not everyone who's a great player is a great analyst. That's just the facts. You can know something inside and out, but being a leader is about how you communicate that to other people. Some people don't have that gift. I think Jessica Campbell can have that gift, but she has to learn every station, a la my friend who is now a chef. Anyway, coming up next, let's talk about the Mavericks. They're in a little bit of trouble. We're also going to talk about the Chiefs a little bit, and then we'll wrap up this show of Locked On Kraken. All right, Seattle hockey fans, today's episode once again brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Listen, have you ever, taken a look at your bank account and been like, where did all my money go? That was me. Well, that was me before I got Monarch Money. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's completely easy to lose track of your finances. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Now, Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. I love looking at the dashboards. They're simple, they're intuitive. It's super easy for me to attach the accounts that I want to Monarch Money so that I can use those dashboards and accounts to keep up. For me, what that looks like is I use all of my business expenses, and I've been able to keep my personal expenses separate by making sure I link just the accounts that I want to track on Monarch Money. So that gives me a more complete snapshot than maybe I'd get from my bank account or some of the other apps that I personally have used. So I highly recommend Monarch Money. I've had a great time using it so far. And I want you to take control of your finances using Monarch Money. You can use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Hope you're enjoying this episode of Locked On Kraken. Had a lot of things to say about Jessica Campbell and should she be the next Kraken head coach. We talked about that in the first segment. Heard from Kaapo Kakko. I know I said I was going to play that episode last week or do the deep dive on Kaapo Kakko last week, but that Yankees hat going into a Subway Series weekend, I couldn't do it. As a Mets fan, I just couldn't do it. We got absolutely annihilated, especially in that third game. Brianna Stewart threw out the first pitch there, former Seattle Storm member, now with the New York Liberty. I'm glad seemed like she had a great time. I am super sad that the Yankees now have bragging rights, at least for now, in New York City, but I digress. The Kansas City Mavericks, ECHL Western Conference Finals, taking on the Toledo Walleye, and they're in a little bit of trouble. They got blanked 2-0 in game 1, and really tough, tight game in game 2. But Toledo, they get the fourth goal in the third frame, and Kansas City just couldn't claw back. They lose 4-3. So they're down 2 games and about to go on the road. We need a little magic. Jack LaFontaine going the distance here for the Kansas City Mavericks. I think it's going to be, I haven't had a chance to speak with Tad yet, but I think it's about the little things, focusing on the discipline, but he also wants his guys to really get active, to not wait for the game to come to them, but to impact the game right away. And so from what I've been able to, see from these games and breaking it down, it's just a little bit of a return to that. You saw more of it in the second game, and that fire, you need to see a little bit more of it. That's what it's going to take. If we look at that second game, Again, Max Andreev, if you want to talk about a sandpaper guy, he's the sandpaper guy for this Kansas City Mavericks team. Cade Brochard continues to be great. It was Casey Carew who got the third goal for the Kansas City Mavericks in the second period, early first, minute or so of that second period. But then they give up a goal just a little over the 5-minute mark in the third, and that's all she wrote. So Kansas City clawed back. While I scored those first 2 goals, they got 2 goals in the first frame. Then they gave up a third goal to Toledo in that first frame, but they were able to tilt the ice. It just was the start. It was the start. So if I had to guess, that's what Tato Had really wants the team to focus on, make sure they are sharpening up their passing, things of that nature. We've talked about also the team when it comes to special teams. And if we look at the box score from game 2, Kansas City doing better. They were 2 for 2 on the power play, 0 for 4 for Toledo. And we heard from Tad, for those who listened to that extra bonus episode, that he didn't feel like special teams was bad. He felt that their special teams was giving the team momentum, and that maybe the goals they were scoring were not considered power play goals, but they were a result of play on the power play. So I love that. And it's good to see that that's falling in line for Kansas City. They kept the shots close, 29-27 in favor of Toledo. You take that, including both had 6 shots in the second frame, but that was the difference maker for Kansas City, in that they were able to get a goal. And, I think that if I had to guess, Tad is telling his team to just stick to what they do. They're not far off here. Probably didn't like what they got in the first game, but that's a wash. They fought back in the second, and now it's just cleaning up little things, getting back. I do want to give some stick taps to your Spokane Chiefs. They did fall in the WHL finals to the Hat Tigers. We knew that they were on the ropes. We talked about that a little bit. And what does this mean for Berkeley Catton? Is he going to get the Shane Wright treatment? Will he be able to get the exception? This is a guy that led the WHL with 42 points. He had led the WHL with 31 assists. And, what is that transition? I talked about transitions a little bit when I was going into the reasons I think Jessica Campbell will not be the next head coach. But is it going to be a transition? Does he need more time? Can he, figure out an exemption that he can get to play in the AHL? All of these things. So it's going to be interesting to see. I don't think we'll know until we get closer to training camp. I want to see what kind of shape he comes into training camp. Again, going to the finals, going to take some time off. But there's also rookie camp. Will he, like we've seen with Shane Wright, come to rookie camp? And he's obviously not a rookie here, but can he be a leader? Is that an opportunity for him to show what his leadership skills can be? I'm very curious. No more games for the Chiefs. The Kansas City Mavericks play again on Tuesday, May 20th. That's 7:15 Eastern time, so 4:15 Pacific time. And then IIHF. Canada's looking really good. Canada's looking really good. The United States, we know, has faltered a little bit here, but as of right now, here's what we have as far as your standings in the men's worlds. You've got Sweden atop Group A. They have 6 games played compared to Canada's 5, so they have 18 points compared to Canada's 15, but they're both undefeated. Then you've got, so it's Sweden, Canada 1 and 2, Finland at 3, Latvia, Austria, Slovakia, France, and Slovenia. In Group B, it's Switzerland, Czechia, USA, Germany, Denmark, Hungary, Kazakhstan, and Norway in that order. So, of course, we're looking at that Canada versus Sweden game when it comes to what we've got on deck here. But this week, you have, or I want to go back, excuse me. So we had a 6-3 win, the United States over Germany. Last time I was on the mic, I told you, let's keep an eye on that. And wouldn't you know, it was Philip Grubauer versus Joey Daccord. Joey Daccord got the win. The United States got the win. So there you go. Good for Joey to get that bounce back. Had a loss that we talked about earlier in and I love that he's getting time in net. I love that, we saw him go up against Philip Grubauer here. This is a game. I'm not saying it was Joey Daccord versus Philip Grubauer. I mean, it literally was, but I'm not trying to make it salacious. I wanted to see both of them in net. I think they probably enjoyed it. And I do think that this game is one that the United States was expecting to win, or expected to win, and they did. We didn't see any of our guys on the score sheet, but Joey Daccord in net. So I didn't want to skimp over that, but I do want to talk about the games that are coming up because, again, you've got Canada taking on Finland today, May 19th. At the time that I'm recording, they have not played yet. But then you also have Canada versus Sweden on the 20th. And that's going to be the big one. Also, Czechia, USA is going to be big because the United States are trailing Czechia right now. So can they get some points outright, jump them in the standings by getting a win in regulation? I'd love to see it. So we'll talk a little bit more about IIHF and the men's world championships a little bit later in the week. But this was a long episode. I'm not sorry, but I just wanted to really break that down with Jessica Campbell. Want to see her as a head coach, and I don't think she's the right pick for the next head coach for the Seattle Kraken. But hey, we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe she'll knock it out of the park. Sometimes you put someone in a position, you throw them into the pool, and they swim, baby. So we'll see. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. And hold fast, stay true. Hey, we've got our Firebirds didn't quite make where we wanted. The Chiefs not in it anymore, but you still got the Mavericks going. So let's go Mavericks. And always, let's go Kraken. I'll catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody.